Hello and welcome everybody. Hi. Hi, Marcie.
Hey, Margaret. Eminem, it's the Eminem show today.
Yeah, we've had a couple of those. I know we had Marion, some M's. Yeah, I like
Yes,
getting a nice, good sample of all the letters in the alphabet. We're here
yes.
for Agitation August. We like letters, we like vocabulary, we like alliteration. I don't know, it's like a word focused channel or something. Um, But if you are new here, my name is Margaret Pinard. I'm a historical fiction writer and an eclectic reader. And for this month, I have been asking wonderful guests like Marcie of Brown Girl Collective to come on and tell us about a book that transformed the way they think in some way. And so we're going to be talking about We Refuse because this was her choice.
Yes.
And I saw it on her lovely channel a couple months ago, I guess. So,
Yes,
Marcie, why don't you
earlier
tell
this
us?
year. Yes, earlier this
Yeah,
year.
tell us a little bit about your channel and what we can find there.
Yes, well, Brown Girl Collective is just that on YouTube. And it's a space where I really enjoy bringing in authors who can talk about a variety of types of books. And Margaret, you watch a lot, and let me back up just a second. Thank you so much for having me here in your space.
Of course, my
Because you're
pleasure.
always showing up in my space. So now it's the time to, return the favor. But yes, in that space, I feature Black women writers. Always, every now and again, I'll let a man come in the room if he has something worth talking about. But we really love to celebrate a variety of types of books across genres. Through the BGC Book Club, that's one show, and then I have a second show. So I'm usually doing this twice a week on Mondays and
Crazy.
Wednesdays. And the second show is normally something called Live Well Sister. And it just talks about things that help us, like with our lifestyles, how we can live better, or books that are talking about things that pertain to social issues or whatever, but just so we can live our best lives. So that's what it's all about. Been doing it for 5 years, have over 300 interviews to date. So yes, I'm a busy girl.
Yes, and they're so good. So I definitely encourage anyone watching this and interested in agitation and critical reading and critical thinking to definitely waltz on over there and sign up because I've met a lot of interesting authors there and added them to my TBR.
Yes.
Today's author is one of those, and I'll drop the link in the chat in just a moment. But we're going to start off with saying We Refuse Kellie Carter Jackson. Look at the really awesome cover. That was one of the things they discussed, actually, because it was like a specific choice. Yeah. So can you tell us why you picked this one as your agitation choice?
Well, I chose this particular book because We Refuse really gets into ideas around what it means to refuse or to rebel against things that are happening in the world around us. The tagline is A Forceful History of Black Resistance. So oftentimes, if you think of resistance, we may see things that have to do with marches, or we think about, things that were happening during the civil rights movement or whatever. But there are so many different ways that a person can resist. And so it really stood out to me just thinking about myself and the history of what that means, as well as, how I can show up and resist or refuse or whatever, and understanding that there are a multitude of ways that can be done.
Excellent. That is my first connection I'm going to make. So we had Social Justice for the Sensitive Soul with Leslie, my friend at Books, Girls, and Purrs. And that book was a lot about different ways to resist as well. And that was depending more on like your temperament and your sort of energy needs. And so that's what it focused on. But this is sort of taking as its jumping off point Dr. King's message of nonviolence, which many of us should be familiar with. And yes. I've got another link to drop in the chat because there's actually 6 principles that I don't think I was familiar with. But in case you want to read up on those, I will do that.
I'm hearing them off.
Yeah, but there's something special about the date that I was going to ask you to highlight for all of our watchers. What's special about the date that has to do with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
Yes, well, today, if you're watching this in real time, today is August the 28th, and actually in 1963, Dr. King delivered the I Have a Dream speech on August 28th at the March on Washington. So it's a couple of things about that particular date. And there's some others as well, but that one really stands out because it ties to the whole point of nonviolence and thinking about what it means to be nonviolent and to resist.
That's great. So, special date. Not many people got back to me with a special date. They were like, not this day, or not the beginning of the month. And you were like, oh, let me get that date. And I was like,
yes,
perfect.
Yes,
so it was actually like intentional.
Yes, it was intentional to choose this date, But yes, there's several things. And if you just Google the date, you'll see what some of the other things are. One was the United Kingdom abolished slavery in 1833. On this date, former President Obama gave his first DNC speech on this date in 2008. And there's some other things as well. So it's a lot. And this is also, for those who may not be aware, it's a part of Black August. So Black August is a month of resistance. Oh. Yes, that was started by some incarcerated people many years ago to just talk about incarceration and things like that in the Black community and just resistance overall. So it's really a whole month, but this date in particular has special significance.
Yeah, I only learned about that event this year, actually. And then I was reading on a few things about that because of the audiobooks that I've been listening to. So that's, fantastic. Thank you for bringing that one up too. We've got some lovely viewers in the chat to say hello to. So we've got Greg.
Those readers in the sky.
Gareth. Yeah, I know. I love that channel name. That's fun. I've got my links in the chat. We've got Diane. I do love that cover. Yeah, it's pretty smart. We've got Leslie. I just called your name. So obviously you heard me in the ether. Lovely to have you guys here. So we know a little bit about the book. How about the structure? We've got 5 different, is it 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. 5 different sections where Kellie Carter Jackson jumps off from nonviolence and says, these are some ways that may not be nonviolent, but they're also important to avail ourselves of when we are resisting. And I say our because I can take these lessons into the communities that I'm part of, but obviously they're meant for Black communities, history, and to draw from those incidences in her case. So given that, the tone was very different for me. Is that any part of what made it like jump out at you? Like, it's not just history, it's not self-help, but it's like, it is really about agitation. It's about these things really happened. You should know that they're available to you and not be afraid to stand up and fight. Was that any part of the reason why it was like particularly a fit?
Yes, it definitely was for me because, I was born in the 60s, telling my age. I was born in the 60s, but of course I wasn't a part of any of those movements or anything like that. These were things that I heard about in maybe a little bit in school, probably not enough in school, but that's a different conversation. But just learning about history and, seeing different things over time. And there has been so much focus on like Dr. King and others in the civil rights movement and civil disobedience, being nonviolent, things like that, getting into good trouble, like, we heard John Lewis talk about, but just really to think about, they're understanding there is more than one way. It's not always about being either violent or nonviolent. There is on a continuum, so to speak, and you can be a little bit of both, just depending on the circumstances. And there's so many things in between, but in the times that we are in now, just really thinking about what does it mean when a person decides to resist or, refuse things that are happening in the world around them. And, to understand that it doesn't have to look like the movements in the past. It can look totally different and also be individualized because it depends on who you are. To your point about the other book you said you read, who are you as a person? What feels good to you? What does that look like for you? So that's what really made this book stand out for me.
Yeah. And one of those things I would respond to is that I think the nonviolent movements of the past have set up our legal system a certain way. And so people looking back at those now know how they can get around those efforts. They can yank permits and they can, deploy troops or whatever. So I think really giving more bandwidth, more options is going to be good, because like I feel like a lot of people are way ahead of us in terms of progressive values, and so we need to get our diverse options out there.
Right. There's a question. Ask me what part of the world I live in. I actually am in the land of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I live in Atlanta. So, yes, I live on the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. So, yes.
So you get two populations shouting out if you're ever in stand-up comedy to say, hey.
Yes. Nice. And well, like I say, when I do my show, a whole bunch of places in between, because I am an Air Force veteran. So I've lived a bunch of places.
Yay. Awesome. That's great. Okay, so we're going to move into some of the more detailed things. So I took notes and I'm like having to choose because there are so many good pieces. I'm talking about reframing. So in your experience, in your perception of nonviolence, how did that show up for you when you were growing up as normal? Like for me, I was growing up in a Catholic school situation, and nonviolence was always turn the other cheek. It's from the Bible and sort of the accepted norm. But I feel like now we need a bigger boat, right? Where was your starting point?
Honestly, in my household, it wasn't really a thing per se. Again, back to the fact of learning about it and, understanding that turning the other cheek sounds good in theory, but also understanding that in practice that it may not always be the best way to deal with an issue.
Right. Or deal with a bully.
Right. Yeah, to deal with a bully. Absolutely. But I'll admit, I'm one of those people who did not fight. I did not get into fights.
Me neither.
I guess I had
that one.
A gift of gab, maybe, that could keep me out of it, which is, you see what I'm doing now. So it's all relative.
Yeah, interviewing.
Right, exactly. But just to think about it, it really wasn't, necessarily a thing. Nonviolence on his head. But when I think about some of the other things that come up in the book, because one of the things she talks about is joy. And joy was a big thing for me, just thinking about coming up, because again, born in the late 60s, growing up in the 70s during the Black Power movement. So, I was into, the joy of Soul Train. The music of that era. And it was a time when Black people were starting to like wear their natural hair for a season. Then we've come back to it, but like wearing the afros and looking at magazines and things that really celebrated Black beauty, lay a lot, I'm Black and I'm proud, that sort of thing. So for me, it was more so that aspect, which honestly, some of that probably did come more out of, say, things like the Panthers and stuff like that. Just that whole thing of Black pride and all of that. Because matter of fact, the Panthers were born the same year that I was. So
very cool.
So yes. Cool. So I would say it was probably more of my experience, but also, as I mentioned, growing up in Ohio, not to say there were certain things that weren't happening, because we know that there were like riots and things like that had taken place all around the country, but just in my personal life, we weren't really exposed to it as much.
Gotcha. Yes. And Kathy said what I should have said out loud, which I just said in my head. Thank you for your service as an Air Force
vet. You're welcome.
There was a portion where she talks about moral suasion. So I'm sort of getting the naysayers and the non five out of the way first. And is there a way that you have come to think is the best way to deal with people who argue that that's the only way we should be addressing resistance, is moral suasion? She takes a few different views of conflicts around the world where oppressed people were fighting for rights in different countries, and they said, well, they had the church on their side, or they had the government on their side, or the courts, or whatever, and different people use different tools. Do you think the moral suasion is something that would work in the U.S. today, for example? Or
you see it on my face. Because, well, for those who may not know, the cliff notes of that is moral suasion is thinking that you can you can convince people to do things because of them feeling bad or feeling guilty, that sort of thing.
Or appealing to their morals and values.
Yeah, appealing to their morals and values. And I would say now, no, not so much. I mean, I'm sure there is a microcosm of people that maybe would feel bad about certain things or the way they see things happening in the world. But I just feel like a lot of people are kind of desensitized to that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And when you speak about certain issues, maybe you're seen as trying to be quote unquote woke or, all these other things that kind of try to make it like a bad thing versus like really leaning in and being able to listen to what people are saying and what they're trying to express. And maybe, having the ability to look at issues from a different lens. Like I can look at, you know what I mean? Well, zodiac wise, I'm a Libra, so I see both sides. But, being able to say, okay, yes, this might not be my experience. This might not be what I'm dealing with, but I can still look at and have an understanding of someone else's point of view and not always feel like I have to try to twist it or what they're saying isn't real or meaningful. So I think today is probably more difficult to lean into that.
Interesting. I think it's also more difficult because we have our different facts, our alternative facts. And so even if you're trying to say your morals and values would tell you to act on this, the response would probably be, well, that isn't true. And that's when we sort of get into loggerheads. Yeah.
Right. Because honestly, even back in the day, so to speak, some of the same morals and values still existed, right? But things were still not always happening in a way that was in the best interest of everyone.
Right. It's one of those things where like, here's the face value of a statement. And then like, here's the understood value that some people get that privilege and some people don't. And then like, we're just not going to talk about it or, not enforce that law in some ways. Yeah.
Right.
There's a point towards the end that you just made me think of, which was about forming communities of resistance. And Kellie Carter Jackson points out that you need both public communities of resistance as well as private communities of resistance. And I was just going to ask you what you think the different needs are for those different spaces. As you read that section, what came up? Because this related to another book that is not in the readathon, but is in a different readathon that I'm reading right now. And it's called How to Do Nothing. And it's basically resisting people trying to steal your attention span. So like tech bros and the capitalists and the billionaires and everything. And I think there's a big crossover here with like the elite rich billionaires from tech and then like the elite rich white establishment that wants white supremacy. I think there's Venn diagram's pretty close.
Right. Yeah.
So resisting, and what are the different needs to resist for the private community and the public community that we might share?
I'm just thinking that a lot of times people do want to kind of be in community with people that they feel can relate to the situations that they're going through in a different way where you don't always have to explain.
Yeah.
And there's some communities that you go into where I can say, the sky is blue, and I'll have to explain why the sky is blue because people might not see the sky as being blue, as an example. So I do think that it is important for people who are actually literally walking in those shoes to be able to come together and have conversations and be able to, kind of figure out where maybe the challenges are and come to some level of understanding of those challenges as a collective. And then understanding that from the perspective of bringing others in, that no great change is going to happen in this nation or anywhere else if people don't learn how to come together and work together. So yes, I may be over here in my group and we're having this conversation, and then I come into a broader conversation with a variety of people to see, okay, how can we all work together to bring about change? Because thinking back to like the civil rights movement specifically, since we started out kind of talking about Dr. King and what this date represents, it wasn't just Black people. They may have been Black people who got in the room because a lot of the things that they were dealing with, you know, on their own or in their communities, but they brought so many other people in to be able to have the right types of conversations and to really be able to affect change. Because there's a room that someone else might be able to step into that they'll close the door if Marcie shows up. So having allies or accomplices, I know a lot of people, there's stuff about which word you use now.
Yeah.
But to be able to have people who really stand with you and help you, I think that's so important. And it's very important right now because it's so easy to get into a silo and say, oh, well, I'm going to be over here in my group and I'm not talking to that group or whatever the case may be. But how can we come together and really begin to affect change, you know?
Yeah. And I like the idea of having the two spaces complement each other, and there can be overlap in them, obviously, because like you were saying, explain things to people. What comes to mind is there's Heather McTeary. There's a third name, and I don't have the book anymore because I had it from the library. She has a book called Before the Streetlights Come On.
I have that. I actually interviewed her too.
Okay, yeah.
Talking about.
And I was kind of like, before the streetlights come on. So like when it gets dark and the streetlights come on, but I didn't understand the full significance. And she explains it at the beginning. It's because everyone had the parents who would say, you better be back before the streetlights come on. And I was like, oh, I didn't have that experience. So like that didn't call to me in the same way. So
yeah, it's Heather McTeer Tony.
Okay, Tony, thank you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think there's both like an element of protection that you're going to be in multiple population spaces where you're like, okay, what work am I going to have to do and what protection around my heart am I going to have to erect, you know, because with your people, you feel, okay, I trust these people a little bit more. They know, you know, they assume some of the same things, but in a more diverse group, you're kind of like, okay.
Right.
What are we going in for? Yeah,
right. And I mean, and even in a group that is the same, so to speak, understanding even within a group that's the same, maybe ethnically, there's still diversity even within the same, you know, because I often will say, Black people are not a monolith, okay? Yeah. So, you know, things like that. So, you know, there is a diversity of voices even within similar groups, but there's diversity, but then there are things that are similar. Because, for example, a person can have a doctorate and be in the wrong neighborhood and get pulled over. Or a person can be, you know, have a GED and be in the wrong neighborhood and get pulled over. So some things are the same regardless. Yeah. You know, so, yeah.
Okay, so you're saying something that reminded me of the reference to Octavia E. Butler. Yes. And I just finished the biography called Positive Obsession.
She's coming soon.
Oh, is she?
Yes, I get some of everybody.
That's awesome. That's going to be amazing. Yes. So I listened to the audiobook and it was really good. I kept hearing all these like pieces in her life that were like so relatable and like really, really inspiring. So I read Parable of the Sower for my first talk of the month with Dee Dee, and that was my first Octavia Butler. So to go from first book to the biography, I'm like, definitely, I want to read as much as I can of her other work, even though she's hiding Survivor. She said she didn't want anyone to print it anymore. So that was interesting. But one of the things that is referenced in this book about Octavia at the end is about drowning. So I'm going to relate that to the public group and private group. Mm-hmm. There is a section that she's talking about even if you want to try all these other things, you've got joy, you've got protection, you've got revolution, etc. Sometimes what you do to resist and survive is like not engage and like let the other person who is in danger of drowning drown, because you cannot help this person who you've been locked in battle with forever. And I was like, the bells were going off. Like,
yes, you see the look on my face, like,
yeah. Did that link up to anything else in your memory? I know you talked to a lot of people. Is that like a theme that you've seen somewhere else, or?
Not really a theme that I've seen, but it is something that just broadly right now we're seeing.
Yeah.
Like when we think about, and I mean, this book does have political undertones, so I mean, it is what it is. But
Yeah.
we're thinking like the 92% per
Mm.
say, like Black women who voted in one particular way versus another. And
Mm.
now that we're seeing some things not necessarily, all of us are seeing some things not necessarily go the way we would have wanted them to. Some of us are sitting back like, okay.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Figure it out. Figure it out.
Yesterday or the day before that I was referencing Francesca, and it's something with an R.
Ramsey.
Yeah.
I know all the names, even if I don't know all the people.
Yes. And I did put it in the chat earlier, but the song title that she coined is "I Never Thought the Leopards Would Eat My Face." And
Right.
I'll just let people look that up and explore and discover that for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the drowning thing, it kind of, I think there's a little bit of that in the FAFO to keep it clean argument. And I don't know, here's one of the other themes that's come up in the other talks is that if we have people who are leaving the cult and they're trying to disengage and say, oh, wow, I believe this and now I know I did it wrong. Like,
right.
I want to come back to like the regular Americans and join you guys in resisting and kicking this weirdo out, right? But then there's like trust issues. So like, how do you welcome them back and how do you protect your own sanity? I don't know how you feel about this. I just testing it out because I saw one TikTok video where someone was like, I don't know how I'd feel about someone saying that to me, and I was like, I relate to that. So
yeah, I don't know, because it is tough to think, okay, like, okay, we're gonna welcome you back, but are you gonna do the same thing again?
Yeah.
Because you're right, it is about trust and just figuring that out. I mean, I'm thinking even in personal relationships, if something happens and okay, it might happen once, maybe it's twice, but like the third time, and like, no, you can't come back. You can't come back around here no more.
Yeah.
So I guess I think it's going to be kind of for the people who have the bandwidth, really,
right,
to lean in and maybe provide tools and resources, but not necessarily be like, I have to be the one to teach you or to show you or to tell you. Because one of the things that often comes up specifically with Black women, and actually in this book, she talks a lot about Black women's role in movements and resistance, because a lot of times men are put at the forefront and women aren't always recognized. But there's so many times that we have to do so much heavy lifting within our community, with around the world, whatever. And sometimes we just want to rest. I know people hear about the concept of a soft life. Sometimes we just want to live that soft life. We don't want to have to do all the heavy lifting. We don't want to my point earlier, we don't want to have to always explain things that should maybe be a little bit obvious, but we got to go in and explain. So I think that, being able to provide resources like this book or other things so that people can kind of learn and, ask questions and maybe know how to frame the questions a little bit better because they've taken the time to kind of learn, because the internet is free and there's so many things that you can learn and engage in without having to.
I smile when you say that. Yeah.
You don't have to pull on, people. You really don't.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. No, I was looking back at the calendar because there's the talk earlier this week with, I think it was the one on disinformation with Melinda, where we were talking about whose responsibility is it for that, like, education and media, that we need to like turn the tide. And whoever I was talking about it with is like, yeah, maybe you give it to the people who have had a soft life so far. Right? Like, this is where we step up to the plate and we do that work of reintegration of people so that they're on our side. And like, that relates to the How We Learn to Be Brave book. So the white ladies of us who are used to, staying in the background, maybe have to like find that step up energy and be like, okay, let's do this together. And you can prove morals are in the right place and you're with us and you can be trusted, and then we'll go and do the next thing together, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Since I'm holding the calendar, this is going to remind me that we have bingo cards. So why don't we choose now, exactly halfway through, to be your bingo moment? Which is your word if people haven't figured it out yet, Marcie?
Yeah, because I'm the last one.
Well, if they haven't been to every talk, they
well,
might
that's
know,
true.
so,
That's true.
yeah.
That's true. My word is vicissitudes because I like the way it sounds. Vicissitudes.
Yeah. Magisterial. I love it. I love it.
Yes.
Oh, and you said someone often uses these in his preaching. So
yes,
it's
Bishop T.D. Jakes. You know, oftentimes he's like, when you're up against the vicissitudes of life, and every time I hear that, I'm like, oh, I love that word.
Yeah.
Can't say it 5 times real fast, but I do love the word vicissitude. Yes.
Yeah, it's a good one. I've gotten a little behind in the chat, so let's catch up there. Gareth says you're absolutely right. There is a lot of defensiveness in discussion now. Oh, Eva, hello. I had someone say to me once, it doesn't affect me, so I don't care. And they didn't understand how much that statement was the problem, you know? Like, yeah. Leslie, fellow Libra. JF. Okay, all right. We have education. These are going to be hard to get out of context, Eva, but I'll catch up here. We need secular church. Hear me out. School is school, but adults have work. Our society is set up to make community with diversity hard. Yeah. We had a short story that was about a small community in Minneapolis that was in a dystopian, like, future state where they ran out of electricity and they came together and, you know, found their resources and stuff. It was really hopeful. It was like, they call it solar punk. And I was thinking, like, I don't have a community like that around here. Like, it's mostly people like me in my neighborhood. So how would I find that, you know? But Rachel said her neighborhood is diverse and she's in Kansas. So yeah, I mean, do you vote with your feet, I guess? I don't know. How about that?
Well, that brings up a question to me. I know you're asking me the questions, but I'm going to ask you a question. How did you find Brown Girl Collective?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It was a long time ago, so it very quickly gets
you've been
into,
around
like,
for a while.
The fogs. I was probably Googling, like, Black book channels because I'm always looking for authors that are on Booktube for Black Author Tuber. I have a readathon in February where I highlight Black Author Tubers and have them on and read their books and try to get people to buy them. So
that makes sense.
yeah. Community centers, what happened to those?
Yeah.
Is it linked to a church? Is it government funded? I mean,
yeah. And I guess it really just depends on where you are, Eva, because over the weekend, I had an opportunity to attend an event for my day job, and it was actually at a community center. Right now, it's just one building here in Atlanta that someone purchased, and the people were kind of coming in and out. My organization was there for something, then another organization came in, then there was a in the back doing, like meditation type stuff. So they do exist, but maybe not in the same ways as they did in the past because our communities just look different. In general.
They're driving communities, so there's always that to wrestle with in terms of like how far away things are.
Even with churches, same thing. How many people who go to a church actually drive to their church versus being able to walk to their church or synagogue or place of worship?
Yeah. And then after this came out of Eva's mouth, she said, "Oh God, is that what someone will say about libraries someday?" Mm-hmm. I mean, libraries have kind of turned into community centers in some respects. Mm-hmm. I know some people use the public rooms and meeting rooms for community groups to meet. So there's that.
Mm-hmm. I was in one last night. People were actually eating. I'm like, they let you eat in the library now? That's different.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know that they do in mine. I don't think they do. Yeah. So Eva also had that streetlight experience. But to be clear, as a child, we also feared cargo vans. I think we always called them like windowless vans. That was the thing they kidnapped. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and Eva's had experience with this. Letting someone down is hard, but it's the only way to live. And the metaphor that Kellie Carter Jackson uses is not necessarily letting them die. It's like as soon as you like pass a little bit of drowning, you calm down. What's the word I'm looking for? Otherwise, you will try to rescue them and they will take you down. So if you let them lose consciousness, then you can easily get them to shore.
Because actually, on that note, I did write down what I think it was what Octavia E. Butler said. It says, drowning people sometimes die fighting their rescuers.
Yeah, the epigraph at the beginning for a parable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So good. So good. Eva says, we didn't want it, but we saw it coming. Miles Niels.
We told y'all.
Yeah, worst kind of I told you so. Yeah. Yeah, and then it's beyond politics when it comes to the fractures that politics causes.
Right.
Yeah. True. Okay, so maybe we can get into a little bit more detail about the private communities. Hi, Mom. It sounds similar, but there's a big difference between being in a silo, which I think we would say has some negative drawbacks to it, and having the reassurance of a friend or a couple of friends who truly understand your experiences without explaining. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And not needing to explain can provide the support that keeps us going. Yeah. Yeah. And then Grace, hello. The internet is free. She loves that. Yeah, activists need their safe places, and even one friend who understands is golden. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Eva says, my neighborhood has diversity with religion, race, and age. Definitely not class, though. There's always something.
There's always something. It's always something. Well, I can venture to say my area here because I'm not in the city of Atlanta, I'm on the outskirts, and it is all of the diversities exist in my area, so that is a good thing. Now, whether or not people are actually taking advantage of that is another story, but they do exist. They do.
Yeah, that's true, and that's part of what I was saying about stepping up. Is that the energy of like, don't stay in your silo, don't stay in your side of the fence or whatever it is. You need to get out there and join. If you don't have a private community that discusses those things, you need to get into a public space that does, so you can find other people to act with. Yeah. Maybe I need to make my own community center. You got a lot on your plate right now. Oh, yeah. Okay. She's stepping away. I'm gonna save Kathy's question and see if I can get through all of mine. Leslie says, I love that Butler quote. Hanif Abdurraqib uses that quote in one of his books. Oh, okay. So this is one of Leslie's favorite authors.
Okay.
But he's done poetry, plays, I feel like graphic novels. He's done a whole lot of cool, interesting things.
Right. And actually, when I was looking up not alternatives, but books that would go along with this book, one of the books was his, A Little Devil in America, Notes in Praise of Black Performance.
Yeah.
For the Joy piece, a cultural love letter to Black dance, music, and joy as survival strategy. So I love seeing that name come up again. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. There's several content creators on TikTok who really bring that energy, and there's some of it is humor and irony as well as joy. Do you know, is it Danny Dees, the dancer, who does the leg stretch to like these really funny quotes that he says, like, surprise, surprise, that song? It's just hilarious. It's a really great way of showing like, this is what they said they would do. This is what they were doing. Is anyone surprised? Yeah.
I love that.
All right. So you had a book to accompany the joy. Does that mean you had like books to go to if you wanted to expand upon protection, revolution, force?
I did a little digging. To find some. To find some. I sure did. I sure did. I could share. I don't want to necessarily share all of them because it's a lot, but I could share a couple more. That was one about joy. Another, Rest is Resistance, a manifesto by Tricia Hersey. That's that another, yes, because that's all about go somewhere and lay down.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if you think about, historically, and not just Black people, a lot of us have been tuned in or people look to us for our labor, our work. But to say, you know what, I'm going to resist by going and laying, you told me I could cuss. I'm going to lay my ass down somewhere and take a nap. That's resistance in and of itself. We don't have to always be going, doing. So I definitely wanted to mention that. And I've had some times to see her in person, Tricia Hersey, the nap bishop is what she's called. But Isabel Wilkerson, of course, The Warmth of Other Suns, that's talking about flight, because we know that one of the tools of resistance is to flee, and not in a negative way, to say, hey, things aren't working for me right here, right now. I'm going to go someplace else and pursue, a different way of life. Nowadays we are, right now, here and now, we're seeing some people who are deciding to become expats and like, you know what, I don't want to deal with it. I'm just going to go live someplace else. That is something that people do. That is a way of refusal.
That's a fabulous book. Yeah.
Yes. I like the name of this. This is by I'm probably going to say the name wrong. Akinyele, Akinyele, Umoja. We will shoot back.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like the cover of the book.
Yeah.
And that's about armed. Yeah, we will shoot back. Armed resistance in the Mississippi Freedom Movement. Okay, so we will shoot back. So that's one. Let me see if there's another good one. There's some others just talking about different revolutions and things like that. But those are the ones that really stood out to me. So we could, consider reading and learning more.
Those are some great ones. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question about humor and anger, and since I did just comment about some of the TikTok things, that made me think of that. The short story that we read, the point that I made with Rachel was something about sometimes you have to deploy humor to foster trust or to break the tension or for any number of reasons, and that's the best way to form community. But also anger is important to show because you will reveal that something is important to you and then draw others to you for whom that is important. So there's these sort of tools to use. What do you think about where those are appropriate these days, or how we can use them as tools to our best abilities?
Well, I see it a lot. I mean, well, Black Twitter isn't a thing anymore.
I know. It's the morning of it, yeah.
Maybe TikTok, or it might be different memes or things like that. There's sometimes it's stuff that's happening in the world that's really, really serious. But there is a segment of the community that really has a way of taking things that are serious and hard, or can be really harmful, and finding the humor in them, or in creating memes and things like that about it. One thing that's sticking in my mind, because I had a chance to go to Alabama last year, and the brawl in Alabama.
Yeah, the folding chair.
The folding chairs are people making pictures of folding chairs. Whatever. I mean, that was a serious situation, but they made it humorous. Now every year on the anniversary of that day, I see people are celebrating, putting stuff up. But I mean, that's just an example of taking something that might not be positive and finding humor in that, or you may see if you're online, a lot of people doing these line dances and stuff like that. They're the world is blowing up around us, but we're gonna go somewhere, and not that we don't care, because let's be clear, us not being all the way leaned in all the time doesn't mean that we don't care, but understanding that we have to learn to access joy and laughter and fun, and to be able to dance and to create art, and just all those different things are so important. Because I mean, so much of our culture has been done in times of struggle. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so being able to look at what's going on around us and still be able to find a place to find joy or beauty, or, you know, to have a cookout and dance with friends or whatever the case may be. I just think that that's really important, and, you know, to lean into that. But of course, again, not that we don't do the work, not that we don't care, but sometimes you got to laugh to keep from crying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And I think the response to that, if people are pointing to like, well, African American population, they're busy with cookouts in the summer, they're busy with line dancing, they must be content and complacent and completely all right with what's happening. That's
Nope.
when you look back and you give the eyebrow, right? This is when you're like, why are you even joking? You know, like, give me a break.
Nope. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the disdain. I think there's some really good creators and artists out there that are great with the disdain look. So that's who I would turn to for that response.
Like who you mentioned earlier, Francesca Ramsey. Like, she's good at that, you know.
Yeah.
She'll, things that are happening in the world, she'll put, you know, a humorous spin on it, or whatever the case may be. But she's still expressing her anger or disdain or disgust or whatever, but she puts a humorous spin on it because, again, sometimes you gotta laugh to keep from crying.
Yeah. Did you see the song that came about because it was a black man who was singing the one about we're in a hostile government takeover? It's a banger.
No, I missed that.
It's so good. His voice is great. He's just on his way to work, but there's a hostile government takeover happening, and he's just singing and riffing about it. So the talent is just
that's what
lovely to witness.
Say. Yeah, the creativity, the talent is unmatched.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I don't know if I have covered all my questions. It's buried underneath here. Let's see. And then I can go to Kathy's. She had, what was your biggest takeaway from the book?
For me, the biggest takeaway was just realizing that there are a lot of different ways that we can resist. And sometimes that resistance, it can be multiple things all at the same time. It showing as a way of resisting stuff that's happening around us. Because we didn't talk about all of the 5 necessarily, but, you know, understanding that there's more than one way. It doesn't always have to be that I'm sitting somewhere and, you know, somebody's pouring a milkshake over my head, you know, or setting me on fire. You know, these are things that happen during the movement. But it doesn't always have to be that I just sit there and I take that. You know what I mean? Right. There can be other ways of showing resistance. So that was what I really leaned into. And also learning about many of the women who really have, because of course this cover, you know, it's a black woman toting a gun. Mm-hmm. You know, there were women that were actively involved in movements and coming up with ways to resist. And, you know, oftentimes standing up even for the men in their lives, because maybe it wasn't safe for that man to stand up for himself. So things like that. I loved really being able to lean in and learn about all the different ways in which we resist. And this kind of a part of the question, even like right now, you know, there are some boycotts going on of different retailers and things like that. That's a part of that resistance.
Yeah.
And it's nonviolent on the one hand, because, you know, we're not going in there and burning stuff up, but it's also violent because now we're taking money and things out of people's pockets. And, you know, there's a level of violence to that. So, you know, just on that continuum of understanding that, if you start hitting people in their pockets, they don't like that.
I saw a headline for someone's video right before this that said, "Don't eat the rich, let them starve, or make them starve," or something like that. And I was like, oh, I have to find out what this video is about. That's a great headline. Mm-hmm. Since I write historical fiction, and it's often finding stories that are lesser known or like forgotten causes in history that are strangely, eerily, relevant today. Those are the ones that I like to highlight and bring to the forefront for people. I really liked hearing about the DC riot in 1919 and Carrie Johnson's part in that. So I actually looked on Google Maps and I was like, where is that? Because it showed, it explained where her house was. Mm-hmm. And basically there were mobs roaming the streets, and they were catching people, catching Black folks in neighborhoods and basically trying to lynch them, trying to throw them in jail, beating them up, like just race riot, right? Mm-hmm. And she was hiding in her bedroom with her dad under the bed, and the cops came up and like shot, and I'm gonna get the details wrong now because it's been a while, but it was an eerily similar to almost like a Breonna Taylor incident to me. And so I was like, wow, this is like one of those things where someone could write about this and put a twist on it, or put a like a similar story and have a real compelling reaction, so that people would be on the side of this is not equal rights. This is not presumed innocent. This is reckless endangerment. Like, why are we on the sides of the reckless cops, you know?
Right, but to somebody's point earlier, people don't care until it affects them.
Yeah, what Eva said. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But pointing it to the very house where it was, like next to where I remember the old post office being in DC, and walking by there, and I was like, oh, wow, I can picture exactly where that would have been, and what it might have felt like with like everything on fire and mobs roaming. Oh, strangely, like it is now, maybe. Not on fire yet, but mobs roaming everywhere. Scary stuff. Scary stuff. So you gave us a couple other books to explore for revolution, protection, flight, force, and joy. Of course, joy is going to be the favorite one to investigate. Right. But there's another one that was sort of similar, explored similar Black resistance efforts, that's coming on your channel tonight. So can you tell us about that?
Yes. Actually, y'all, again, I stay busy. This will be my third actually hosted interview of the week. But the Battle for the Black Mind at 8 p.m. Eastern time is coming up with Karita L. Brown. And this book talks about, and you're right, there's some overlaps because some of the same people that are mentioned in this are mentioned in here, but it talks a lot about during the time when Black schools were being formed and things like that, both higher education as well as, K through 12, how there was a battle for trying to determine, did Black people need to learn skills that were going to enable them to continue to like work the farms or be domestic workers and things like that, or are they going to learn things that are maybe more intellectual, or like learning languages, or be able to become doctors and lawyers and things like that? So there was a battle that many may have heard of, W.E.B. Du Bois as well as Booker T. Washington. It's pretty deep. I was sharing some things with Margaret earlier about that, how some things were definitely done on purpose, and people can be used as tools to try to convince people to go the way that they want them to go. So it's a really good book. I'm looking forward to having that conversation with Dr. Karita L. Brown. Actually, she's based at Emory here in Atlanta. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation with her shortly about this book, because yes.
So good. So good. And I just popped that link into the chat.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Chilling watching YouTube videos, you can hop right over to that one after we're done. Yes. So I know this is about Agitation August, but you're the last guest. So I'm going to ask like a transition question, which is, when you need a break from agitation, what do you do? What's the rest? What's the remedy for you?
For me, well, my head is always in a book, so sometimes I like to get my head out of a book. Okay. And I love going to museums. I love art. You see this art behind me? Actually, that's art that I did. That's not art that somebody else did, but I love art to either create it or, be in the space where there is art. And I love live music. So actually this weekend, I'm going to go to a concert and enjoy listening to live music. And sometimes just hanging out with friends and having a good cocktail or glass of wine and just laughing and people watching. So I would say those are probably my top three.
That's a good hobby. People watching and laughing. Yeah. That's excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, we all need sort of a balance.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So we can stay in the fight long term and resist for a better, larger community.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Marcie. We're rounding off our Agitation August calendar with you today. And I'll just say you have the opportunity to have all of your bingo words taken. So today is the 28th. You have until Monday, the 1st of September, close of business. And you need to email me some proof that you have a bingo, which ones, the names, and the words. And then you'll have a chance to win $25, $50, or $75 worth of book gift card credit. So it's worth it to put your skin in the game. So hopefully I'll hear from some people about that. Our final closing session is tomorrow. So between 10-ish and 12, I'm holding some space in case any of the guests want to come on and reflect with me about how they are making connections with other people, what they found out during their conversation on the channel, and how they're going to maybe do something because of it, hopefully. And then I'll have some planned activities going on in September to sort of let us down easy after this high intensity month.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Agitation is something, but I mean, it's important. And I appreciate you for bringing this together and, all the different guests and things like that, because it's important. Sometimes we do have to shake things up a little bit.
Yes. And you definitely made me up my game, because when you said yes, I was like, oh, God. Okay. Because she does such great interviews, y'all. So really subscribe to the channel. You'll find great books and you'll have great conversations. Of course.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Gareth is a musician, so he loves the live music line. For sure.
I love, and well, I don't know how familiar I'm gonna tell you who I'm going to see. I don't know how familiar. Well, you should be familiar with them.
He's in Britain, so maybe not.
He still should be, because they are writers and producers of a whole bunch of music. It's Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. They used to be in The Time, so they worked with Prince. They worked with Janet Jackson and produced a lot of her music. So yes, I'm going to see them. They're doing like a 40-year retrospective of their career.
Oh my gosh.
All of, so cool. Jam and Lewis. You know what's up. Jam and Lewis. Yes, absolutely. That's what I'm going to see on Saturday night. So I'm so excited about that, to see just the 40-year retrospective, because I listed some of the ones that you might know, but there have been so, for those who are musicians who know who they are, there's been a whole lot of people that they worked with over the years. So I am super, super excited about that.
Excellent. I am way behind everyone on the music conversation. So I get a lot of my music from like TikTok that people use music in. So I'm like, fourth adopter generation. That's embarrassing, which is fine. I do other things.
Music is actually my first love, more than books. So before books, I should say.
Yeah.
Like you see books here, that back in the day, that would have been albums. So yes,
I assume your albums are somewhere else. Yeah.
Yes. I have a few like over here, but nothing like the books. But I do have a few. Yes, they were extremely important in the 80s. Absolutely. But yes, so I'm really excited about that 40-year retrospective. I plan to be on my feet all night.
Black joy. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you. I love your community. Do I sing? Actually, a little bit. I'm not going to do it right now, but a little.
All right. Well, maybe you'll catch her on the channel later singing, but
yes.
That's your incentive to go subscribe. And thank you everyone so much for being here all month and hanging out in the chats and having such great discussion questions and comments. Tell me about books that you've picked up because of Agitation August, and everyone take care.
All right. Take care. Thank you for having me.